Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel to week number 9 of the Bake Off 2022 Technical Challenge Bake Along that I'm doing. So last week was semi-final week on Bake Off and it was patisserie week. And for the Technical Challenge, Prue asked the bakers to make 4 vertical tarts, so where you had a ring of pastry that you stood upright and it was filled with a chocolate and hazelnut mousse topped with a thin layer of raspberry jelly and then decorated with some whipped cream and small piped chocolate discs. So yeah, that's what we're going to try and make today. I have already weighed out the ingredients for the pastry, so we can start with that. So in the bowl of a food processor, I've just measured out the flour, icing sugar, some ground almonds, a bit of salt and some butter. I'm going to blitz that up until I get a breadcrumb-like consistency and then add my egg yolk to make a pastry. And then I'll wrap that in cling film, chill it in the fridge whilst we make the chocolate mousse and the raspberry jelly. Right, so the dough for the pastry is made and in the fridge. Now I'm going to move on to making the chocolate mousse. So first of all, I have 2 sort of tart or pastry rings. They're 8 centimeters in diameter, and I've just lined them with some acetate and placed them on another bit of acetate, and that's where we're going to fill the chocolate mousse into. So that's prepared, and I'll set it aside for later. And now for the chocolate mousse, the recipe calls for, so you have to melt 100 grams of chocolate, 50 grams of praline paste and 2 teaspoons of frangelico, which is a type of alcohol, over a heat-proof bowl. So I don't have the alcohol and I'm just going to make it without. I think it should work perfectly fine. When it comes to praline paste, now so this is hazelnut praline paste, and obviously you can't really buy that anywhere. I have seen it before in France and I was tempted to buy it, but it was very expensive, so I didn't. But I found a recipe online to make your own. I made slightly reduced quantities of it. This is what it looks like here. So for the recipe, I used roasted hazelnuts. You can actually buy these in Lidl here in the UK, but if not, just toast your hazelnuts briefly. And then I made a caramel and then I blitzed the two together to make this thick puree. So I'm going to use 50 grams of this in this recipe, and the remaining I can use for some other recipes. So yeah, I'm going to melt the chocolate now with the hazelnut praline paste, and once that's all melted, I'm going to let it cool. Slightly stir in a soaked leaf of gelatin and egg yolk, and in the meantime I'm also going to whisk up the egg white with some caster sugar, which will make a meringue that I can fold into the chocolate mousse. But yeah, first things first, melt the chocolate and the hazelnut praline. Okay, so my chocolate mousse is now in its 2 rings and setting in the fridge. Now I'm going to make the jelly. So I've just pureed 75 grams of raspberries and strained them through a sieve to get rid of all the lumps. I'm now going to add a bit of caster sugar and boil it, and then I'm going to leave it to set. I've just lined like a food container, like a typical size that you'd get a takeaway in, with some cling film, which I'll pour the jelly into to set. And the setting agent is gelatin. Now it says to use 1.5 sheets of gelatin. I actually only had 1 sheet left, which I used for the mousse, but I've got some powdered gelatin. So what I'm going to do, fortunately this you need to dissolve in liquid, so I'm hoping that it'll still work, because, so the whole set pack is for 4 leaves of gelatin. I need 1.5, so one pack's 12 grams, so one would be 3 grams, so 4.5 grams would be 1.5 sheets, so try and weigh out like 4 to 5 grams and dissolve them. You have to do the whole thing in 8 tablespoons, so do maybe just 1.5 to be sure, and like dissolve that and then add it and then boil it, put it in. But if you do have a sheet of gelatin, just soak the gelatin and then stir it into the jelly once hot. That's probably easier, but yeah, I'm gonna try with this. But yeah, gonna make the gelatin and then we can make the pastry things. Right, jelly is done. I don't know if my camera switched off halfway through that, so I don't know if there's any footage of the jelly making, but it was easy. It's in the Tupperware now. I'm going to leave it to cool and then put it in the fridge to set. In the meantime, I've got my pastry back out of the fridge now. So I'm going to roll that, they say, into a rectangle about 9 centimeters by 28 centimeters and like the thickness of a £1 coin. Now I also have 4 pastry rings. These are actually crumpet rings. They are 9 centimeters in diameter. What I'm going to do then is use each strip to line the inside of the ring, and then I'm going to place them in the freezer for 20 minutes. That's just to let the pastry firm up again. What I will do though, and they don't actually specify this in the recipe, but remember on the actual program, the bakers were given rice to put in the middle, so that because those that didn't do it, then the whole pastry kind of collapsed in the middle. So I'm still going to kind of blind bake the pastry by, I'll place it on a baking tray, and then I will line it with a little bit of baking paper and add my baking beans, just so that the rings stay crisp and don't collapse on me. But anyway, so I'm going to roll that out now. Like I said, put it in the freezer, then put in my baking beans, and then bake at 180 degrees, 160 degrees fan for 10 to 12 minutes. Oh, and then they also want you to make a crumb, a hazelnut crumb. Is that really necessary? Why are there so many elements to this recipe? I don't like patisserie at all. Anyway, let's get on to rolling this, and then we'll do all the other 50,000 elements that are left to do. Right, so my pastry tarts are in the freezer chilling. I actually had a lot of offcuts, and I've given the whole recipe another thought, because you're meant to make this hazelnut crumb for the pastry tarts to sit on top of, which is essentially just a crumble with exactly the same ingredients almost as this pastry. So I'm wondering, I think I'll just cook this pastry as the crumb. I might mix in a few ground almonds. It says ground hazelnuts, but I only have the whole hazelnuts, so rather than grinding them, I might just add ground almonds. Toast this off. At the same time, I've got the pastry tarts in the oven, so that it's only on once, and then I won't bother with the whole hazelnut crumb, which is purely for decoration, and I think a bit of a waste of ingredients, also seeing that there's so much leftover pastry. So that's what I've decided to do. And then the final step of oh no, actually there is some double cream to whisk later. Okay, so almost the final step of things to make is little chocolate discs for the decoration on top. So I'm just going to melt some chocolate. They say to use a sugar thermometer to get it tempered, but I'm just going to do what I usually do, which is to melt 2/3 of the chocolate and then add 1/3 of the chocolate in afterwards, mix it in. That usually cools it to a nice temperature. I'm also going to reduce the amount of chocolate because I think it's far too much. They also say that you should use a gold glitter spray to make the little chocolate buttons almost golden. I wish I had some glitter spray, but I don't have it and I couldn't find it in the shops. So I'm just going to do it without. So I'm going to temper the chocolate, put it on a little bit of acetate, and then use the bottom half, or the larger half of a nozzle to stamp out some rounds. But yeah, I'm going to do that, and then the pastry rings will be ready to bake. Okay, so all my elements are finally ready. So I have my crumb, I have my 4 rings, which I baked for about 15 minutes or so. Then I removed them to get rid of the baking beans, and then I baked them for another 4 or 5 minutes just to crisp up. So that was a lot longer than Prue said in her recipe. I have my 2 chocolate mousses which are set, and I'm going to remove and cut in half in a second. I've whipped some cream which is ready to go. My jelly is set, and I also have my little chocolate rings which I used the open end of the nozzle to cut out the rings. So I'm now ready to assemble by adding half of a chocolate mousse ring into my tart rings, then the jelly, then the whipped cream, the discs, and assembling it on the crumb. So yeah, I'll do that, and then I'll show you the final results. There you go, now you're in.
Yeah, okay.
Too tall. Okay, so here's the finished result. Here's 3 of them. Don't know if you can tell. Oops, that one's gonna fall over. So this was by far, I think, the hardest technical challenge so far. Also, one of mine broke, which you'll see. It's completely my fault. I tried to force the jelly in, although it was too big, and I pushed down on it and it cracked, and it was But anyway, I'll let you try it first. This is the one to try.
Okay.
So we have the ring of biscuit, chocolate and hazelnut praline mousse, raspberry jelly, cream, just go for it, cream and
Don't even know how
gold
you eat
leaf.
it.
Yeah, I don't know how you're meant to eat it. Oh, just stuff like that. Just.
Oh shit. Sorry.
Well,
I don't really know the point of it being vertical when you have to like then put it on its side
I know,
anyway.
it's so silly, isn't it?
You-
No,
should I
you
just
try it first, then I can try.
try a bit?
Get a bit of everything, yeah, to see them. No, looks like it. Just go. Any good?
Mm.
The chocolate mousse wasn't quite thick, like high enough to fill the entire ring, so there was like a couple of millimeters at the back which didn't have mousse, so that was a bit.
Quite nice.
It's a big photo.
People didn't get the. I'll have a wee bit of just the jelly because I didn't get much of that.
There's
The
more
mou-
jelly also there.
The mousse is nice. Flavour.
It's very rich. That hazelnut praline is so good. I have quite a lot left over. I put it in here. It says red pesto, so it's not red pesto. But yeah, there's loads left, so we can make something else yummy with it. I quite like it. I think that the pastry is really nice. What did you think of the jelly on its own?
I think it's that. I want it to be sharper. Maybe
Yeah,
it's not
maybe-
strong enough. I don't know.
Maybe, so I didn't, it has 75 grams of raspberries, maybe not that much, but.
You make it
Or maybe
with
I
the-
shouldn't have added any sugar at all.
The real raspberries.
Real raspberries.
Okay.
Still quite nice. If you have it with the real raspberry, kind of balances it out.
Didn't get any with this. It's a bit hard to eat.
So basically the conclusion is, took forever, there's loads of elements, It's actually not that many ingredients, which is surprising when there's so many different elements. Took forever, but it tastes okay, but it's difficult to eat essentially. Will we be making this
nice,
again?
though. It is nice.
It is nice. Will I be making it again?
Probably not.
Right. That's for semi-final week. Only one more week to go. I'm actually really glad that it's over next week. Only one more technical challenge, and then I can finally bake something I actually want to bake, which isn't a technical challenge. So yeah. Hope everybody enjoys finals week on Tuesday, and I'll see some of them next week with the final technical challenge bake. Right, see you then. Bye.